Karolina, do you think that everything we said is okay? Like, there's nothing you would want to cut?
No, this time I'm proud of myself.
Okay.
You did so good. Hey guys, welcome to Breakfast in Beauclair, a global Witcher podcast. My name is Alyssa from GoodMorhen, and I'll be your host as I and our international hanza accompany Geralt of Rivia and his destiny, Cirilla of Cintra, across the continent. Here we are at the end of Breakfast in Beauclair Season 5, and I am so excited that we can end on such a high note with our beloved guests today. But before we get to that, it is always such a pleasure to return to the source material, return to the books. And guys, I'm so excited to be done with Time of Contempt. But that also means we can get back to The Witcher Season 3, which we'll be doing on Thursday, April 4th. And after that, onward to Baptism of Fire, Tower of Swallows, and Lady of the Lake, my favorites. I hope you have an incredible holiday season with your loved ones. You can always join us in the Hanza, particularly at the Hanza Discord between seasons. And I wish you a wonderful new year and a happy start to your spring. And I'll see you in a couple months. In the meantime, you can catch up on Breakfast in Beauclair on social media channels. You can find the entire international Breakfast in Beauclair community at bit.ly/the Hanza Discord. Make sure you tune in. We'll be starting planning for our 5th anniversary trip to Poland, which will take place next summer. Can't wait to see you all and meet some of you for the first time. Something else to catch up on. Some of you know that I'm the executive producer of an audio fiction series, Peculiar Radio. Peculiar Radio debuted a couple of months ago, and we are quickly coming to the end of our 12-episode Season 1. You can find all episodes of Peculiar Radio wherever you find your podcasts. We have 5 mini-episodes and a 12-episode Season 1, so be sure to keep up until that ends in February. That has been such a delightful and rewarding show to work on. If you like audio fiction, if you like comedies, and you're up for trying something different than a discussion-based podcast, definitely check it out at Peculiar Radio. And moving right along, this episode we welcome Shaka Kant to our Hanza on Patreon. Thanks as always to all of our supporters and our producer-level patrons, Katie the Redhead of Toussaint, Jacob B, Haven of Edge of the World, Charlotte from Eggenberg Glamorai, The Original Roach, Codringer's Cat, Libby, John of Riblia, Tom from Australia, Jill Kate the Tabby Witch, James Carson III, Miriam of Temeria, and Softy. It's really thanks to our patrons that I'm able to pay for important tools and services to keep the podcast up and running, with things such as podcast hosting, transcript services, domain and website resources, artwork, and more. I know I mentioned this last episode, but I'm still looking for an editor, which is probably what I'm going to be spending some of my time doing over the break. So if you know an editor or you are an editor that would be interested in working on the show, kindly let me know. Or if you'd like to continue to support the show monetarily, go ahead and check out patreon.com/breakfastinbeauclair for more details. And for the last time this season. As for this episode, our beloved, wonderful, fantastic friends Anita, Sarna, and Karolina Krupecka from Witcher Kitchen call in to introduce their debut book, The Witcher Official Cookbook, Provisions, Fare, and Culinary Tales from Travels Across the Continent. If you haven't yet had the pleasure of hearing Anita and Karolina's other appearances, you can hear them on episodes 8, 9, and 34 through 36 of the podcast, covering the books, or the Breakfast in Beauclair YouTube series Around the Table, where they shared history and mythology that inspired Netflix's The Witcher Season 1. They are an absolute joy. You are going to love them so much in this discussion. And here they share the origin of their new work, their experience collaborating with CD Projekt Red and their publisher 10 Speed Press, the highs and lows of production and working together, and a preview of what you can expect from this unique culinary take on the Witcher world. Without further ado, let's get to our discussion of the Witcher Official Cookbook. Hey guys, welcome to Breakfast in Beauclair. My name is Alyssa, and today I have two special guests to the show who will need no introduction. You'll recognize today's guests from their appearances on the podcast covering the short story The Bounds of Reason and Blood of Elves Chapter 3, their contributions to the YouTube series Around the Table, their frequent collaborations with game developer CD Projekt Red, I'm getting chills, and their blogs Nerd's Kitchen and Witcher Kitchen. Their recently published book, The Witcher Official Cookbook, features 80 original mouthwatering and restorative recipes inspired by CD Projekt Red's best-selling video game series The Witcher, and a foreword by Andrzej Sapkowski himself. Please welcome Anita, Sarna, and Karolina Krupecka from Witcher Kitchen. Hey guys!
Hello, everyone.
Hi, we're back.
Yeah, it's nice to be back, and thanks for having us. It's a real treat to speak with you again.
Yeah, I love chatting with you guys. This has been such a fulfilling and wonderful friendship with you all over the years. And for some people who may not have heard some of your earlier appearances on the show, it's been a hot second. But would you be able to tell everybody, one, how you guys got into The Witcher, and also how you both met?
Yeah, it's maybe I will start, Karolina, if you will let me, because it's a kind of a long story, I would say. But I'm also saying that it was destiny led by The Witcher, because I was running at that time my video game blog about food in video games, and I was focused on that. I just made some few recipes based on The Witcher 3, like a fan-made content, and then someone asked me from the readers if I have the mahakam potato soup on my website from the books of Mr. Andrzej Sapkowski, and I said, well, basically I'm not really doing the book stuff right now. I'm just focused on video games. But I just searched the internet and I just found a really beautiful photo and I just looked at the website and I was like, this website looks really cool. And it's really deep, like it has a very deep meaning when it comes to books and all the fantasy. And then I thought, maybe I should contact the creators of that. And that's how we've met, just because of The Witcher. And then we start talking and it lasts till today. So, so it was like the first day of talking with Karolina, and we've known each other like for 7 years for now, because I think it was somewhere around the end of 2015, if I'm not mistaken.
Like
then we decided to meet at first in Poznań at Pyrkon. It was a fantasy convention, and it was the first time we've met. It was 2016, and we learned that in fact we were living very quite like near each other. It's only 30 kilometers, so we were like, okay, we have to meet. Then we've met, and we started talking about some collaboration between our blogs and so on, and that's how it started. And we're just together from this moment. So yeah, that's how it started.
Like Anita said, it was a destiny, and we've been joking that must be true, because even when we don't know each other, we live in the same district of the Poznań, and there is a grocery store. When before was a cinema or theater, where was the premiere of the Witcher movie with this old Polish movie, and is a poster. Now when there's the sign for the actors who played in this movie, and we go to the same store, we didn't know each other, and we see this poster every time, and now here we are.
So we were looking for each other, let's say, like,
and the Witcher theme.
And the Witcher theme, and then like we finally meet together just because someone just asked me about the recipe. So
destiny.
Yeah, that's a quite funny story, but I'm really glad that we did.
I love that. I feel like it does feel like destiny and divine intervention. Whatever angel is out there that asks you for that recipe, like, we thank them so much for these 7 years of collaboration.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And for listeners who might not know, you're both from Poland, obviously, where The Witcher and Sapkowski is from. What has it kind of been like growing up with The Witcher as part of your culture and having a series that is obviously pan-European in its references, but uniquely Polish in its writing, its humor, and everything? Can you tell us a little bit more about what it's like to be a Polish fan of The Witcher?
Maybe Karolina should start here, because she started earlier, as I suppose, but your grandparents bought you first books.
Yeah, because, spoiler alert, I hated books, and they tried to convince me to read. And I remember like my first book that I chose by myself was The Secret Garden, and then I'll go to the library and this little bookshop in the old town in my city, and my grandma told me like choose the books you want, and I chose Tolkien and Andrzej Sapkowski, The Witcher, because from Mr. Sapkowski, the world he created and CDPR, sooner or later I will meet Anita because she was like a few years later than me.
Yeah, but it was also my grandmother, to be honest, because my grandmother always went with me to library as well. But in fact, I loved books from the beginning, and then it shifted to video games. And like still, I love books, but video games are my focus now. So, and Karolina is the book mole, let's say right now. So I think that the mission of your grandparents is really successful. So yeah, so cheers to them. Yeah, and for me, it was like very similar, but a few years later, because I was really a fan of fantasy of all kind. The Witcher is not really for children, we know it, but we started very early. Like for me, it was like I was like 10, 12 or something like that. But still we got in love with all the content because I love fantasy, Karolina as well. Still, I think that reading The Witcher, even if all the inspirations of Mr. Sapkowski are quite broad, because it's not only Polish, it's the whole European, let's say, culture and the mix of it. But still, I think that being Polish makes it easier for you to understand the whole vibe of these stories, because we have a lot of folklore there, a lot of references to the things that we know from the stories that our parents told us in our childhood and so on. So it's easier for us. But I think still like learning and let's say diving into The Witcher when you're not in European culture, maybe it's even more interesting because it's something different, because for us it's quite familiar.
Yeah, and I can only add that this is a simple example, like how The Witcher is still in our life, even if we, for example, don't interested in fantasy or so on. For example, in my school, we learn about some legends, stories about Polish culture. And for example, we have the story of the dragon from Krakow, very famous. But in the same text, we have like the opposite version from Mr. Sapkowski, and we have the part with the golden dragon.
Yes.
How to use the legend and just switch her to the story that someone created based on the Polish stories, culture, and so on. So even if you don't like the fantasy, don't read the books, still somewhere it is and will catch you, let's say.
And especially, I think it's quite, let's say, familiar for us with games, because many of the, let's say, castles and so on were taken from the Polish lands. So some of them, like just the direct references, like for example, the building in Novigrad is from Gdańsk. So we know it, we saw it. So it's familiar for us. So it's just the natural thing for us to let's say, catch the vibes and the meanings and so on. But I still think that for other people, like from foreigners, from other cultures, it might be really interesting to dive into this world.
I feel like it's so nice for me doing the podcast and having you guys and other guests as guides for all of the references that we don't exactly get one-to-one in the States, for example, like The Edge of the World or Where the Devil Says Goodnight.
Yeah. And like I said, that we had a real challenge to translate all these idioms when we were making our short stories, and Karolina will tell you later about them, because sometimes we didn't even have words, like exact words that we can use, because you don't have these words or are not close enough. You know, the meaning somewhere might get lost in translation.
Yeah, and I even add here, if I can, Anita, like we have in our cookbook this text about the devil in the end of the world. And I remember that I like, okay, CPR probably have that somewhere else. I will check how they translate that part. And like looking and like, oh my gosh, what is it? Because I know this is correct, but it for me, it sounds so strange when I read this in English version. I was like, this is not giving me the vibe that I know from Polish.
Some things are just naturally lost in translation or not direct, because that's what language does. when we translate some things. And, you know, translators always have a very hard job. I really have a high respect for the translators, especially when it comes to fantasy and all the references, not only in The Witcher, because I know like Old English, for example, if we use it and then we want to, let's say, translate it to Polish, I think it's the other way around, that it's also very hard and challenging for Polish translator to have it in our language. So
absolutely. And I think that's, you know, a really lovely introduction to you both and a nice segue into the reason why you guys both are here, which is the debut of your very first published book. Major congratulations again. I feel like I can't say it enough and I get chills every time I like talk about it and see it. Over the course of the last few years, you guys have had the amazing opportunity to get to know each other, collaborate between yourselves with CD Projekt Red, and just build your brand and build your videos and build your content. So in the midst of all that, over the last, 6-7 years, when did the opportunity and the possibility of a cookbook come about and how?
In fact, we were thinking about that like in, let's say, half of our journey, and we were just speaking about all the opportunities we can have. At the beginning, it was like, maybe not, because, the, let's say, market for these cookbooks was growing, in fact, but, making video game based cookbook, it's not so easy, and you need to have a game that has food, and The Witcher, of course, had it all, but still we had to, let's say, explain all the let's say ideas we had behind it and how we will manage that, and it took some time. And in fact, just like 2-3 years ago, we had this, let's say, green light from CDPR, then we got our publisher, 10 Speed Press, and in fact, it was the beginning of our journey with making this cookbook. Well, it was quite a long, let's say, project, because we didn't realize we will go very deeply, let's say, when it comes to this cookbook, because usually when you see inspired cookbook, you have few recipes that you, for example, saw in the game or in a movie and so on, but they're not usually, like, I'm not talking about all the cookbooks, but for me, sometimes they miss the point about creating the universe vibes, creating another layer. Just like, for example, you have the architecture, you have the clothes that you, for example, associate with characters from a given universe. And I think about the same thing when it comes to food, that it builds this immersion. If it's done well in a game or movie or a book, it just gives you this another, let's say, extra flavor, pun intended, to the universe that you're experiencing. And in fact, it was for me always my main focus to see, let's say, the work of game developers and how they manage to implement the food motives into their, let's say, titles and so on. And it's not just about the mechanics. For example, when you cook something, for me, the storytelling was the main focus, like how it affects the world and how it makes the world believable. So it was, let's say, our main focus on what we wanted to achieve with this cookbook, not only just cook like recipes that are associated with a given universe that you've heard of, that you saw in the game, or just read it in the books, but we wanted to create something coherent with the universe that will let you go deeper into the universe and create this another layer, so you can think about it. Like, for example, if you saw a cutscene in Witcher 3 with Kira Metz and Geralt and the supper they had inside the woods and so on, that it makes you, for example, more immersed into the story. And just because of food, because the food was there a main, let's say, character. Like, of course, we had Geralt, we had Kira, but the whole quest was about food. How Geralt got all these ingredients that Kira asked him about. So for us, it was the main goal to focus on these things and show people how to perceive it, and that they can perceive it in a, let's say, deeper way when they experience and they have contact with, let's say, all pop culture works they have, and especially in The Witcher, both in books and both in games, because for us, it was very well done. Like in both, let's say, in both cases, because Mr. Sapkowski created a very broad, let's say, sense of a cuisine that is characteristic for the Witcher universe. And CD Projekt Red added another layer to this, especially in The Witcher 3. And it was really beautiful for us. And it was an honor that we could, let's say, analyze it and show how we perceive all the work that they did and honor their work in, let's say, our way with this cookbook. So in fact, we got all the inspirations, like the basics for this cookbook from their work. And we really tried to be coherent with what they did. And we hope that the work we did will be, let's say, warmly received by all the Witcher fans. So we didn't do anything that's not really aligned to the world.
And that was also a long journey, as Anita told before, because together we don't like to make anything too easy. Like I think that with this IP that and with respect, like both the books and the games, we go like very deep, like Anita said. But I was like, I want to create a book that it's not only simple, because this is the cooking book still, so we need some, let's say, points that it's good when this book will be used in the kitchen. But I was like, I want my book pretty. We go with the full experience. I don't want to say that is most important, because the cooking part is still like the main focus, but give everybody who's like cooking or not, stories or in the photos could fit to the Witcher world created by Mr. Sapkowski and CDPR.
And in fact, I used to talk about that like an art book with food. So sorry to say that, but for me, how it turned out, it's more like an art book with food, to be honest.
I don't regret anything.
we somehow went around with this and created something that required from us also some artistic view. Let's say we had a lot of help from CDPR, our team, and we were so thankful about that, because we think that what you can see in this book really pays a tribute to all the cultural references and all the things that were done, both in books and games. And we tried to make something that it could be an addition to that, but still very, let's say, a kind of a tribute to that.
And we're both very grateful to CDPR and our publisher that they allow us to break so many rules, because the first time when we told them our list of recipes that we don't want to make like categories like main meals, dessert, but we want to create chapters and mix all the dishes. And when we told CDPR that we want to break a little bit the visual side of the book, like the ornaments and so on, like because I am like the folklore enthusiasm and so on, and I know so many different, let's say, ornaments and so on, but they still allow me to put them, but they adjust them, that they feel like they are part of The Witcher, not like just some folklore ornaments added to the book. No, they are switched a little bit, thanks to the Przemek who help us, Przemek from CDPR, help us adjust them. So everything was a very big, and of course that create breaking so many rules. But as I said, the publisher and CDPR are very supportive.
You guys have spoken about so much that has gone into the book with really like the goal of immersion, how to build an element of the continent for people as they're going through the book and they're able to see the recipes, the artwork, the photography, the actual text immerses the reader. And one of the things I'd love to talk about is the introduction of a narrator that is unique to the Witcher Official Cookbook. So could you tell listeners a little bit about what they can expect without giving, I guess, too much away, however much you guys want to talk about, when it comes to our new guide through the continent?
How it even happened that we have the narrator and we have the stories in the cookbook. That was my idea, that I want something more from this book. I don't want just simple recipes like I go to the tavern, I eat something, oh, it's delicious. No, that will be too easy. I don't like easy things. So then we tried to convince CDPR that we can create stories and new characters. There was a position that we use Jaskier or other characters from the Witcher world, but I don't like this idea. idea, not because I don't like the characters, but I don't feel like I could tell the story from the perspective of Jaskier. I didn't know him that well. For me, that would be weird. Like, for me, only CDPR and Mr. Sapkowski can do that. And then that was the idea to creating a new characters. The CDPR approved the idea. For the first time, it with Marcin Batylda, the lore master from CDPR. He was so supportive for me. I learned from him so many things about the Witcher world and how to create the characters and the stories that feel that they are real from this world. They are not, let's say, fake. Maybe it's a big word, but you probably know what I mean. Together with Marcin, we created several versions and decided to do the cartographer from Kovir who live with their family and they loving cooking together. And this family have a little, maybe not little, a workshop and an etc. in Kovir where they creating very fragile things and very beautiful like maps and other things that they are used in some courts and palaces. It's a tradition in her family that everybody, when they go somewhere for the travels, journey, when they come back with the stories about the places they visit and also with the recipes for the food they tried, because for them it's something exotic from the different country. And this is the first time when she go beyond Kovir's borders, and she will of course, back to home with new stories and new recipes. And Anita, maybe you can add something little more, but we will not spoil everything.
And in fact, the narrator is somehow similar to us in some things. Like, we are not professional cooks. She is also not a professional cook. She just likes food and she likes to, let's say, eat, to try it, to try to cook it in a sometimes better way or worse way. And in fact, she's also, let's say, someone from the side when it comes to all the events that were done, for example, in the books or in the games, because our main axis for the cookbook is still the Witcher 3 game. And the timeline is somewhere a few years after that. And she just see some traces of these events. For example, she knows some special event that is a tribute to the crowns, right, when it comes to the gingerbread cookies. So it's just one example that we hinted somewhere in the stories, and she was, let's say, our conduit for that, so we can familiarize with her as authors, and also all the fans can familiarize with her because she's looking from the distance at all these, let's say, events. And we didn't even want to create something like, Geralt goes somewhere and cooks something and he's like perfect at it, because we know that he's not. But still, we have these small hints about Geralt and other characters that you all love in our last chapter, GoodMorhen. But we don't want to spoil too much on it because we want you to dive in yourself. But we had real challenge to make it still coherent with the main idea for the cookbook, because, narrator shouldn't be, let's say, according to the lore and to be very, let's say, safe with the lore. Like, she couldn't go into GoodMorhen and cook with the Witchers. That would be strange. So we had a hard time to figure out the way to go around. So she can still, let's say, make some inspired recipes from GoodMorhen, but how? And that's how we devised the idea about the Cohen notebook. But I think that Karolina won't let me dive deeper into this. So we just want you all to see it for yourself and to read the introduction to the GoodMorhen chapter. And I think it turned out really well when it comes to, let's say, connecting, being faithful to the lore, not making something that the main characters from all the creations that we know from The Witcher wouldn't do, or it would be strange for them to do.
Sorry, if I may, I think that decision of this creating this narrator was very good. Now when I see this perspective of the time, because it's still a safe person, and all the people who know the Witcher games can discover the stories that they know a little bit from the different perspective. But all the people who not played the Witcher games, because they still can interesting in the Witcher from the series or from the books, can discover together with this narrator the new world for them. And I love this idea.
And also the new stories, because we didn't want to, meta recycle stories that everyone knew. So what's the point, to be honest? Like making the same stories and just adjusting recipes to them. Like I said, too simple.
Lazy.
too simple, lazy for us. Like we wanted to do something more. Of course, it was challenging. It was time consuming. It was hard for us because also we are not writers. Like we are not writers of the story. So we needed support from Marcin Batilda.
Especially me, because I was like, when I write the stories, and Anita also struggles with that. And I'm so sorry, Anita, but I'm keeping better.
Yeah.
I just write.
Yeah, Karolina loves stream of consciousness when it comes to writing stories. Yes,
and we love that about Karolina.
And I learned from Marcin how to to squeeze everything, use some other vocabulary to get to the point, but quicker, simpler, but still have the rich stories. And thanks to that, now I can help Anita when she created some text. I helped adjust it, and she was shocked when she created some article for the GOG page from CDPR, and was like, "This is too long. We can short that."
yes. In fact, it was a process. Still, we learned a lot, and we had a lot of support that we are really thankful for. So it's not only our cookbook; it's the cookbook made by many people. To be honest, we had support from Przemysław Juszczyk from the CDPR, from Boris Pugacz-Muraszkiewicz, who helped us with his localization
and his team,
to translate all the nuances of the languages and all the idioms we've already talked about, and also from our publisher, because we had to squeeze stories into the pages with recipes. It's a cookbook. Recipes are the main focus, and still you have let's say 2-3 sentence for, let's say, introduction, head note, as they call it.
Yeah.
And then Karolina just, oh no, I want a story. But how could you tell a story in 2-3 sentences? So we fought for more space.
Watching me.
And then we even got more pages for the book.
Yes. And they adjust the whole layers of the page, and thank you to Debbie and Kelly for adjust everything to our needs.
Yes, because we were fighting for it, because we need stories, not only recipes. We need stories there, and I think it really adds another layer for the cookbook, because I know that people are buying cookbooks sometimes just to look at the photos. They're not really cooking anything from it, or just one recipe per 1 year. I do it sometimes myself, to be honest. I'm just enjoy looking at the photos from some cookbooks and so on, on the fantasy as well, and all the, let's say, inspired cookbooks as well. But I'm thinking that it's for wider audience, thanks to that you can find more there, especially when we used also a lot of props, about which we will talk about later, probably, Karolina. Because also Karolina made a real, let's say, deep focus when it comes to props, and very expensive sometimes, which I hated, because I took care of a budget, and then I saw, you want to buy one thing that costs so much for one photo. And Karolina, Yes, I do.
I have 3 obsessions in my life, the stories, and put everything I learn through these years when I read some legends, Europeans and Polish. So this is the one obsession, the stories, and I can finally put them in the Witcher Cookbook. And I hope that people will like my ideas, how something happened in the Witcher universe in perspective of our narrator. My second obsession is ornaments that I previous a little bit say, all these folklore things. And my third obsession is handmade stuff, very expensive, very fragile, but it's important to have a home piece, right?
Yeah, of course.
Listening to you both talk about the narrator and her purpose in your story, it's so evocative of the way that Sapkowski has written different parts of the Witcher series. He always plays around with tertiary characters. We spend, for example, all of Time of Contempt Chapter 1 with Applegat. He hears about Geralt in the distance, fighting a monster. He's talking about it with other villagers, but they never actually see him, for example. Yeah. Or he bumps into Yennefer and Ciri, but it really is about Applegat, this messenger.
Yes.
So I love that we have this narrator, because it really does feel like it's in the spirit of Sapkowski's work.
I don't want to copy something, but I remember some things in my head. And last week I checked something, and it was the small part. I think it was in Lady of the Lake, and it was the part about the holidays, using like the white chicken to have a vision or something. I don't know how it's in translation in the English, but in the Polish is all about superstitions and so on.
Mm-hmm.
In my cookbook, I creating a black rooster. It's opposite because the white is like European, not everywhere, but for example in Polish is used from the superstition thing, and the black one is like connected somehow. I explain very easy, like not very deep, like to the magical thing and also the superstition, but like totally opposite thing. And I was like, Anita, wow, I didn't remember that, and now I created like something opposite to Mr. Sapkowski, but still in the same, let's say, vibe. I was like in shock. I was proud of myself.
It was in your subconscious.
It's
there. Totally.
And so many things that I don't remember. And then I discovered that I create like the opposite version of my cookbook. And I was like, wow, I'm proud of myself.
Yeah. And I mean, on that subject, what are some of the things that you guys are particularly proud of?
I think the visuals and especially photos, because we learned a lot. Like if you saw our photos, because of course we are like, I would underline it because it was a challenge for us, just as we are not professionals. We are not professional photographers. We are not professional cooks. Like I'm a game designer. Karolina is more with marketing and so on. But it was, let's say, our true passion that led us to it. And we still learning. Like, of course, we're not perfect. Like nobody's perfect. We're still learning. We're trying to be better. And we saw our progress. Like, for example, the first photo that we did for the cookbook and the last one that we did. And some of them we really wanted to redo because we saw, oh no, it's not good enough when you compare with others. We have to redo them. It was a long and very tiring, let's say, process because sometimes we did few food photos during one day. I had to cook. It was still in my flat because we didn't have studio. So we did like most of it. We made it in our flat. Some of them we also made in CDPR Tavern, which is used also for Gwent. You should know it from the Gwent videos. But yeah, majority of them we made in my flat. And for example, Karolina brought some rocks, some, for example, sand into my home. Because, for example, she decided to make an impression that it's Skellige Island. So, you know, there was a lot of work.
Sky is the limit.
Yeah, sky is the limit. Yeah, my flat is the limit because it's quite a small flat still. But it was really interesting to see how it looks like from the backstage. We had a really small set. We tried to, get this special vibes that you will associate with what you saw in the games or what you imagine from the books, but still making it in a very small flat with quite tight deadlines, because still making a book like that requires deadlines. Of course, that's normal. So we were stressed that we won't, let's say, make it up to the standard, let's say, because it's another thing making a blog when you're in control of everything. Like even if it's not perfect, you can still publish it. No one just,
judge you.
Yeah, you just don't need approval from anyone. And now it's a business thing. So we are responsible for making a quality good enough, let's say. But so we were, let's say, quite anxious about that, if we will do it.
And we broke the rules again, because like when you have the standards cookbook and when you have like cookbook for fantasy and so on, it's still important to put some props and so on, that create immersive. But we created spaces like the whole room or street or something. Like you have this glimpse that it's more than just like the wall. And the first time our publisher saw that was like, okay, but our, let's say, regular photos are different standard. I was like, but I want to make big this one. Like this cookbook should be big, and like the photos also. So when I look at this cookbook, when I see the photos, I can tell you which photos was the first and which was the last one. And we even 2 or 3 photos. We changed at the last minute because I need a window, a medieval style window, because why not? And we switched photos again. Actually, there are still 1 or 2 photos that I really try to switch, but we didn't have time, but they are still good. At the beginning of our journey, when I started creating the new layers of the scenes, because the previous photos was not that extent, I was very proud of myself, like, wow, I level up my work. But now when I finish this cookbook and I learned so many things, and I'm looking at this like, I can do better the next time.
The next time?
Next time, we don't know, but still, like, yeah, that's something I think that many authors struggle with. Like, I hope, to be honest, because when we are looking at our, let's say, work from the time distance, still, oh, we can do better. Like, for example, we can do this better, but for example, we didn't have time, or something else was on our plate. So, you cannot still, let's say, improve because it won't be published like forever. So you can do it, but still we see the progress. We accept it that some things are not perfect, but we tried our best.
Hope people like it. Yeah, but we learned so much, and I think, Anita, that we both, in every stage of this cookbook, very like to not be criticized, but when people give us the feedback, we can learn from the feedback very well.
Yeah.
We are not like crying, oh my god, something didn't like my work or something else. Like, no, I can proceed everything and I will do something better. And the whole process on every page, like both me and Anita on every stage, when we learn from CDPR and our publisher, we are actually very grateful for sometimes really not harsh words, but like very strict, because we learn from them so much. And we are joking that we have the training.
But still they allowed us for much of creativity and breaking the rules of normal cookbook structure. We're really grateful that we're allowed to do it. The whole, let's say, state of it like turned out to be, let's say, more complex than we thought at the beginning. So I think the process led us to something greater that we thought at the beginning that it would be.
We know how far we can go. Like sometimes we learn when we must say stop. It's enough because we can go again and again and again. And sometimes we learn from our publisher and CDPR when we can just allow ourselves like to be a little crazy with something.
I mean, just looking through the book, it really does, as we said, feel like an art item and like a coffee table book. Yes, it's functional, but it's so beautiful between the photography, like the silver details on the front. It is
shiny.
Absolutely stunning. I know, it's so nice. Shiny. You guys told me a story about some of the experiences that you had pulling together some of this photography in your flat. But were there any fun or funny or absolutely traumatic experiences that you guys had working on the book? I know that, Anita, you had a story about rummaging through your garden.
My fiancé and, in fact, our lighting assistant and our photo assistant went to the garden at 3 a.m. with a basket and just taking rocks because we needed rocks. And I just thought, oh my God, someone would be looking out of the window at him at 3 a.m. What he's doing, like he's mental or something.
For me, like the whole process of making photos was and most enjoyed time in my life. But I have like 3 things when I'm asking myself why I'm doing this to myself. The first time was when we go to creating the photo from the Velen, this gingerbread, because Anita told me that she wants a real tree. And I was like, okay, we go to swamps. We have just some swamps near our locations that just it's good enough that you can go and you're not drowned or something. And it was like in the morning at the autumn, if I remember correctly. And Anita told me like, it's too cold for her. She will stay in the car and I should go and take the photo. I'm like, come on.
And she went with my fiancé, who was responsible for all the technical things. And I stayed in the car because it was too cold.
She stayed in the car. She was fine. And I go to this wood, to the swamps with Jacob to make this photo. And she even texted us like, remember to do something and put the toffee candies and the gingerbread, like to put like in the good light or something. I was like, seriously? You sit in the car in the warm, and I'm here in the swamps, and you told me what to do my work. Thanks for nothing, Anita.
Yes, I chicken out because I hate cold. Yes, I hate it.
The second thing was also when it was cold. It was the winter, very harsh winter, and Anita created the recipe from GoodMorhen that actually we didn't use because we used something else. The first idea was to make this photo on the snow, on some branches and so on. So I go to the Rogalin, where is this huge park of natural, beautiful oaks. And it was like, for me, it was like almost 15 minus degrees. I know you use Fahrenheit, so not Celsius. So it was very cold.
Yes, and, I believe you.
Like if you don't use the gloves, your hands will be icy totally. Yes. And I go and make this photo. And a few days after that, she told me like, we didn't use this photo because she changed the recipe. I was like. And the third time was when actually this time not Anita's fault. It was mine. In the White Orchard, when we have this recipe for this Orchard's compote, I decided that I want the wall with this Wowicz ornament that is painting on the wall. That is actually in the game, the White Orchard in the inn. When you go and one of the walls have this beautiful peacocks and other ornaments that connected to the Wowicz style, and that is real in Poland. And I decided that I made that. Why not? And I have some problems with the paint or something. Like after hours of painting, I have problem with the colors because if you paint something on the white base, it's better color. And I painted on the real wood, and I was so pissed. Because it still not looks good, and it should be like 2 or 3 hours, and I spent the whole night. At the end, it was worth it because the photos are pretty, the wall looks great, but I hate it so much. I never do this again. And that was the third time, and I'm asking myself why I'm doing this to myself.
Yeah, and in fact, when sometimes we had a very long day of photo shooting, we were really exhausted. For example, like we had to do something else the other day, and for example, 12 hours, of making photos is quite tiresome. So
you guys have put so much work and so much effort. I mean, years of effort into making this cookbook. And like I said, it's absolutely stunning. And every new page, every new image, from the recipe to the photography, is such a delight. And all the handcrafted fragile things that you found, Karolina, they look so beautiful in the sets.
Thanks.
Even when you have brought pounds and pounds of sand into Anita's apartment.
Yeah, great.
All worth it.
I remember like Anita was, we were matched on two things, like this in Velen that we use this, I don't know how it's in the English because in Polish it's like tkanina dwuosnowowa, because that was very expensive, but I think most rational thing on your perspective was when I told you the price from this pająki ludowe, this handmade chandelier, because they are made from paper. And she told me like, we pay so much for something that is made from the paper. And this is art, Anita.
Yes, I know. I was just like, oh my God, this will ruin us. Like, still, we had, of course, the budget for everything, but I was just, looking at the whole picture. Like, still, we have 80 recipes, and we've decided that we will shoot every recipe. We only don't have a dedicated photo for the bread, because I thought everyone knows how the bread looks, and we didn't really have space for that. So sometimes we combined recipes. Like, for example, we have 2 recipes, and we couldn't have like 2 photos, like for each. We combined it into one, and we combined, for example, the drink with some, let's say, snack. So we still could squeeze and show people how it looks, because I know that Polish cuisine, to be honest, it's even hard for me, because Polish cuisine is complex. It's not so easy, like you're just throwing things inside and you're done with your dish. Sometimes it just requires fermenting, marinating, and all the things like brining and so
Anita?
on. Anita?
I'm thinking now, you're making the test of the bread, if I remember correctly, and This is true that sometimes this bread is used as the prop sometimes in the background.
Yes, of course, sometimes it is.
Excuse me, we have the photo of the bread, but not in the place when it's the recipe. And where is the bread? You can look at it somewhere.
Of course, we used it.
It will be like display. Where is Wally? Where is the bread?
Where is the bread? Where's this exact bread that we used? But still, we don't have, let's say, dedicated photo near to the recipe. But
the bread is somewhere.
The bread is somewhere. Yeah, we hid it. We hid it somewhere.
We'll have to go find it.
It's a puzzle.
But we really wanted to show, like, for each recipe, we wanted to show the photo because with some of the recipes you're not familiar. You didn't even heard of them. So you have to see what you should aim for when cooking, because, cooking is a very, let's say, dynamic process, I would say, and very adjustable to the kitchen, to the equipment you have, to the ingredients you have, because they're not the same. Even if you have different stove, sometimes for me it's, let's say, medium heat for me, and for you it will be like burning hot, so you will just burn all the things, for example, on the medium heat, because your stove, let's say, is stronger or something. For me, it's still a process, and I'm really curious how people will, let's say, tell us how all the recipes turned out for them, because even sometimes when you weigh, for example, flour, and you measure the flour with a cup, which is more usual for you for the US, and for us measuring in grams is more common, and for me, in fact, measuring is like, let more or less like that, because I'm rather, let's say, cook that doesn't really care about very strict rules. So it was a challenge for me to measure everything, to write it into the recipe, and I believe that people may treat it more like a guideline. In fact, we wrote it in our introduction about how to use this book, like it's just a guideline. It's not a strict set of rules, and if you, for example, feel that, for example, this recipe is too hard for you or something didn't work out, you can still, for example, reach us. We can help you, because it's a process, and we're for the community here, because we're also fans. We're also learning. Everyone is learning. Like our narrator, in fact, for the whole journey is learning these recipes. She sometimes even we have this small Easter egg that in fact is connected with me, that she's telling in her story that she didn't really like to make a braid on some bread, because she just got tired of it. Like it was like, oh, I cannot do this. And in fact, Karolina is making that for me, because
I love this.
I don't like doing very small things. They made me angry. Like I have no patience. Really, I can make a lot of pierogis, but when it comes to making fancy braids on some pie and something like that, I was just like, what's the point? So what's the point?
I remember when I see her work, I was like, Anita, you can't show people something like this. Like, we must do this properly. And I'm making this. And I was happy. But Anita, the last but not least, I think the most important prop, let's say, is the silver foil for us. Because
aluminium foil that you use in the kitchen.
Every time we need something higher, or was like a little bit edge of the table, but we don't have tape, just to, let's say, set up everything. And sometimes even when we need, for example, when the bread like is too flat, I need like a little higher.
So that's our tool for everything. And I think that some producer of aluminium foil should be our sponsor.
If you're listening, big aluminum foil.
We use so much of aluminium foil. Really, and not for cooking, for stylizing.
I regret we didn't counting, because you can make this funny fact, like how many you used. That would be funny.
Yes, and after every photo shooting, we had loads of little balls or something like chunks of aluminium foil. And I was okay, to the trash, to the metal container. Okay, got it. But yes, it helped us so much, because sometimes we needed like very slight angles that we needed, for example, elevate some food, like elevate, for example, one croissant, like above
to pop up on the photo.
To pop up from the photo to above others, so it looks, like a composition. So it was a really nice tool. So if you're a food photographer, I think the aluminium foil is your friend.
I love that. You hinted at this a little bit, Anita.
Mm-hmm.
As people get different translations of
Mm-hmm.
the book,
Mm-hmm.
you had made affordances between the Polish edition and other editions as well. What can people expect when they purchase the book? How can they expect to use it? What is your vision for people bringing this into their own homes and making it a part of their breakfast, lunches, and dinners?
Yeah, in fact, we started with US edition. Our publisher taught us how to make it in a cookbook structure because, as I said, it's a different thing running a blog and different thing making a cookbook that would be published, especially in a different language because we are not English natives and we had to write it in this language. So it was hard, and it was hard to adjust even the ingredients. Like we, for example, know that you don't have in the US, especially you don't have a full access, like very easy access to tvorog, which is an essential part of some of the recipes in the book. So we decided to make our own recipe based on the cultured buttermilk. And still, there are some ingredients that might be, let's say, strange for you or something like that, but still you can adjust. Like, let's treat it like many of the recipes, like they have the core, they have some spices, but you can, for example, use the ones that you like, that you have on your hand. Of course, these are just suggestions. These are the suggestions that we have because it's, let's say, adjusted to our sense of flavor and so on. Sometimes you just need to add more salt because, for example, you have a kosher salt. We don't have it in Poland, and it was written from the perspective of US edition. But still, I think that we tried to make it universal for all the languages, so not to overdo with things. For example, I resigned from few, let's say, more complex ideas that I had because I struggled with them as well, and I thought maybe it's too much. It's just a matter of adjusting it to your, let's say, sense of flavor. If you want to add more spices, if not, if you feel that, I don't know, that maybe something didn't work out the way it should, or you have just some, I don't know, questions, you can still ask us. We are always helpful. We have this Witcher Kitchen website on which we'll still support the book. Because still, I don't even know what to expect. Like, of course, we had testers from the US and so on, but still you have different states. For example, like, in my original idea for Nilfgaardian lemon, we used rectified spirit for this Nilfgaardian lemon, which is an alcoholic beverage. And I had to change it for the majority of editions to vodka because sometimes it's hard to get 95% of alcohol. But for me, the Nilfgaardian lemon is better when it's based like half vodka and half rectified spirit. I don't know if it's even pronounced like that. We had a challenge to adjust some of the things that, for example, are normal for us, but not really for other countries. So yeah, still, I think that using this book, it will be a fun for the Witcher fans because you can still dive not only in the recipes itself that you, for example, have heard of in the game and even read about in the books, but you can still experience the whole story with all the stories that you have to experience the whole journey. So the food is also the character, not only the people, but the food is also the character that you can experience, that you can, let's say, feel how it works in this universe and why it works like that, and how it gives another layer to this universe. And I think you can experience this book in many, many ways. Not only by cooking, but also, you know, just thinking about the food and why it was done like this. And especially, I think that very valuable thing about this book would be the foreword by Mr. Andrzej Sapkowski, because he reveals a lot of his inspirations about food for his books. And I think that he didn't do it in a such broad term before, right, Karolina?
For example, you have some parts, his interviews or the books, like he just give information that he, for example, loves fishing and he loves the dish with fish and so on. But actually, I not recall anything that specific. Of course, someone may say that something like in this style he told like many years ago, but I totally don't remember like one-to-one that will be exactly the same. So yeah, that's a unique piece of text for us. And if I may add something like what to Anita's part about differences, it's connected to my problems and also what we have with Mr. Sapkowski's book and CDPR games, the language and the vocabulary. And at the beginning, I fight very much for that the text in the Polish will not be very different from the English versions. And I remember conversations about the traditions and customs when we have this chapter Oxenfurt and the story about the wedding. And we have this wedding, like in Polish, it's karowaj.
Buns, sweet buns, yes.
Okay. And I remember that I explained our publisher why some parts is the tradition. Like we can give the idea that like in the Northern Kingdoms, like when someone have a wedding, they have this sweet buns. It's tradition that, in I don't know, from the Oxenfurt to I don't know to Vizima, you make this kind of things. But the custom is the thing like how you make this. And in our story, it's like you take the milk from the best cow, you take water from the 7 rivers, and this is the custom. Like the custom is the part that, in my interpretations, is about very small community, small part of the world. Even one village can have their own custom, and tradition is something big, like in the whole land is. And I remember I fight for this word, and they just didn't get like everything is tradition. Like no, this is different for me. And it was so funny to explaining in Polish. This is sometimes very tricky. Like when I the first time told Anita about that, like she knew what I want to like say to message in the story, but she still like thinks, but Karolina, it's a tradition. But now everybody who works on these cookbooks know the differences. And of course, in Polish version, I can put all this.
It's a dialect, let's say.
Yeah, something like that. Like, for example, I give you the hint. Like in Polish version, when I have the part about the devil, I can say diabeł, because normally you say diabeł, but when you want to like switch a little bit, you say diabeł. But in English, I couldn't change something similar, so we stay with the devil. Like we didn't change it, and this is all like small things that is very you can have it only in the Polish. But from the other side, sometimes I find a very beautiful word in English, but it happens that it don't have exactly the same meaning in Polish.
Yeah,
that was tricky for me. But I feel like thanks to the Boris and his team from CDPR, we are very, very close. Like this is the small changes. The one big change, I can admit that, is that in the chapter of Novigrad, in the recipe with this pumpkin stew, right, Anita? It's stew, right?
Yes.
Our narrator mentions some ingredients, and I forget add the coconut milk.
Yeah, which was in the game. And Karolina is crying over this.
Yeah, and I fixed it in the Polish version. Like, I'm so sorry for everybody who bought US edition. I'm sorry. This is the one big thing that it's really changing between the Polish and the US version. But everything else, like, I don't feel like this child is better than this one or something like this. Like, both versions for me are the best. Like, of course, if someone is from Poland, I will recommend the Polish version. But if it's not from Poland, he didn't know the Polish language, the US version is perfect.
Yeah, but still we don't know how it would be done in different languages because we don't speak them. So
true.
we're let's say we just rely on the translators. But it also is the same with the ingredients. Sometimes I even, let's say, and I'm still not sure because I call for a celery stalk, which is, the bunch of celery, but not the whole, like the one which I thought it's still like in the majority of cases in the recipes, like you're you have in mind the single rib, not the whole bunch. And I just thought, maybe someone will read it as the whole bunch and the recipe will be damaged. So, it's still so small nuances that we had, and still we have them. Maybe we're not really aware of some of them, but I think it's the matter of every creative thing that you do, especially in a different language when you don't know everything. Of course, we had really immense help from the testers, from the editors, from our publisher, but still we really tried to, let's say, be as precise as we could. But still, I would rather recommend to treat all the things like casually. Like you have the core, but you can adjust it. You don't have to follow it like very meticulously. If you don't like some spice, just don't use it. Use something instead. It's just the fun of cooking with the cookbook, just to adjust it to yourself, to play with it. I don't really mind. So
I love that. I guess on the subject of encouraging people to try the recipes, what is the one recipe from the cookbook that each of you would recommend that somebody tries?
Oh my God. It's hard.
Pick Anita. A favorite child.
To be honest, it's so hard. It's so hard because it depends on the occasion. It depends on what you're craving for.
No. If I must be more like picky, I think this stew from the Beauclair chapter. That was normally you use that bourguignon, but I know this is the wrong name because you changed the name that we can.
This one?
Yeah, I like this one.
Okay, the pheasantries beef stew. That's the one that Karolina recommends.
But it's a normal stew. Like for me, when I'm looking at the distance, it's like you can find in every recipe something interesting for you, and it depends on what you like. But for example, because I'm not an expert in confectionery things, like. It's still, when I'm adding sugar to something, I'm just thinking, okay, I would rather cook meat because I'm a very meat person, but still I'm really glad how the souffle recipe turned out, for example, because we have...
You see, you have something.
Yes.
Yeah?
2 Beauclair recipes have been recommended, so... I think I'm winning.
Well, you remember that Geralt and his team stay very long in Beauclair, so this is the reason I think the cuisine.
I will say, I had my fingers crossed for like an Easter egg about some sort of chicken soup from Beauclair, but this is the souffle. And it looks delicious.
Well, we have chicken soup in Velen.
Yes, in Velen, and I really love that, this chicken soup, because, it's basic, let's say, but still I tried the thing with vinegar, which really gives it deeper flavor. And with roasting vegetables, it's simple soup for us.
It's very good.
But still, I think it's a really nice basic soup that you can create.
Oh, the nice fact that people should know that sometimes the recipe from the books, they're not exactly in the same places. For example, the Pączki is a Novigrad chapter because we make the story what if the stand in the blood of elves Ciri eat them on the market, right? Okay, right. So many facts, sorry. And we just switched the place, and it's in totally new, let's say, location. Now it's in Novigrad. We have the whole story about the family who made this pączki. So look for the recipes from the books, but not exactly in the same places you will think they will be.
Because as we said, we adjusted the stories, we adjusted the mentions that were both in the books and in the games, because we have to combine them in some way and to make it a coherent journey. But still, if you've read the books, you will certainly get these hints, these Easter eggs that we had them. And that is let's say, some kind of a continuation of a story that the stand was there in Gorsvelen before in the books, but now it's in Novigrad because it expanded. Somehow. So it's a real big business now, and we serve this pączki with bacon, which is quite unusual.
It looks so good.
Thank you, because I connected the old Polish tradition of making pączkis with lard, to be honest, and with cracklings from the lard. And I thought, okay, but that might be too much, so I just remade them. Like Sapkowski, for example, did that. There were with the plum jam inside. So of course I made the plum jam inside, but I added this layer of bacon, of caramelized bacon, just because I thought that it would be also a tribute to our Polish cuisine and what we had in our, let's say, old Polish history when it comes to the story of pączki. So I connected with that. So in many places we had all these connections that we worked for. Like we thought about all the recipes in a very deep way to connect many references and so on, but still to make it let's say feasible to do by the readers. And when you asked me about my favorite recipe, I'm still thinking, like, to be honest, I really like the first 2 chapters, because for me it's still, let's say, the basic cuisine connected with our, let's say, culture. And I like all the stews, like bigos, for example, like this with these plums and so on, that you cook for few hours and the whole home smells like bigos. Of course, when someone doesn't like sauerkraut, maybe it's not for him, but still it reminds me of a home. Really, it reminds me of a home when someone is cooking something for really long hours. It reminds me of all the holidays we had. And it's the same with that. Like if you're cooking meat, or if you're cooking some stew, even if it's a vegan stew, for example, because you can still adjust the recipes and don't use, for example, meat. You can throw something else you want, for example, all these substitute like seitan or tofu, if you would like,
or change the ingredients that you actually have allergy on. This is not the problem, that everything depends on you.
Yeah, you can still adjust and it still work out. And yeah, I love really the first 2 chapters, because for me
I love 2 chapters in the visual point of view.
Yeah, me too.
Cooking,
me too.
So
yeah, but with cooking, yeah, I really love, because it's the core of what I really love to cook, like stews, sandwiches with beer and so on. Like even the kaszanka, we had mentions in the books, we had mentions in the game, like very slight ones, but still we had, right, Karolina?
Oh my gosh, that is funny actually, because the kaszanka is in the books, right? And also is the game, like it's a note, and I created a story that the kaszanka is served on the Paladin celebration, and Anita was asking me like, why are you doing this? Like totally, like I created something new because you have a note in the game. I was like, the game is a note about this, and it happens that I wrote the story about the same celebration that is in the game. I didn't know about it,
but I don't remember where it was in the books exactly. I don't.
Oh my gosh. I will find and I agree with the update, because I was like, now I know in which book I should looking for, but I didn't tell you the part.
Yeah, after all this time, I don't remember everything, but yeah, like we have this accent, and I hope that you can find Polish kaszanka in US. It's like the black pudding, right? It's with groats and with some, let's say, liver inside and so on. But I know it may sound strange, but it's a really good, let's say, dish, that it's very savory and so on. And I really like that, because it's some kind, let's say, of general idea about the Polish cuisine, that sometimes it might look strange, might look like, oh my God, why you're cooking it so long, why so many steps and so on. And then when you just take all these, like all this effort to make it, and like in the final you have this dish after a few hours, for example, of cooking and so on, you're just, let's say, happy that you have it, that you have this stew and so on. And I think it's the real magic of cooking, that it shouldn't be fast like we used to do in, let's say, past years, because the world is fast pacing, everything is so fast, and we don't have time for anything. But I really think that we have to take our time and enjoy cooking, enjoy eating it with friends.
And not only enjoy cooking, but also enjoying this time together with our family and other things. Like we have this whole narration of our story about like cooking with the people we love, and we hope that people will see themselves in this cookbook and create the home meals based on the Witcher Cookbook, but with their friends, the loved ones, everybody who enjoy the good food.
And enjoy the process. It's just, even if you go for ingredients, like treat it as a journey, as a new journey that you can, for example, learn quest. Like you're going for ingredients, then you're cooking, then you're just adjusting and so on. I think it's a fun process, and just treat it like enjoyment, pure enjoyment in a Witcher style. So
Yeah. I feel like pure enjoyment in a Witcher style is the way to define your cookbook, the way to define Witcher Kitchen, the way to define Breakfast in Beauclair. Yeah, it's really lovely to, as always, hear not just about like your process and everything that you've brought to this cookbook and brought to the fandom, but also the values with which you've embedded into your work. The idea of family and camaraderie and sharing time together and having a sense of community.
Yeah.
So I find that so delightful. Yeah.
And also tribute to the work of fantasy authors, let's say, both games and books, because I really dream that every big universe will have its own, let's say, cookbook that will take care of all the narration they have and like look at the food at a different angle, not just a mere decoration, but something more that, for example, developers and authors, writers wanted to, let's say, show you, but maybe sometimes you don't see it because it just got lost in all the things that they are. But it's really crucial for me, at least, to look at it and to, let's say, savor all these mentions, especially in video games sometimes, when the developers really took a real good care of food. I think that it goes still unnoticed. Like people are noticing architecture, they're noticing the writing, but sometimes they're not noticing all these small details that are there, and the food is one of them for me.
And they're building the world, exactly the same. Like when you go the games and the books, like we have so many details, and for me it was like honorate the work, the people who started that, Mr. Sapkowski and CDPR company, but searching all these little things and go beyond and just add the new narration, but still in the very respectful way to the IP. And I hope we can achieve that and people will love that, because my goal was like people like thinking about this cookbook like it's a small part, a puzzle of the bigger picture that the Witcher world that is made by the people who created, but not thinking about this cookbook like it's like the, I don't know, something fake, a fanfic or something like this. It was very important for me that you feel that these stories and these recipes can actually be in the Witcher world.
Yeah.
And we're still a little bit anxious how it will be received. But
very.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I am a sample size of one, but I absolutely enjoyed getting to see all the work that you guys have done, as I said, from the visuals to the recipes. And this is such a product of love from you both. It's a product of love of your culture, of Polish cuisine, of The Witcher, of course, a love of fantasy, of Sapkowski's work, of CD Projekt Red's work. And what a joy it is to be able to, have this part of your work. I'm like tearing, gross. But I'm so excited for you both. And congratulations again on seeing this project through, on being published, on having a lovely foreword from Andrzej Sapkowski. He seems so excited.
Yeah, thank you. We are so thankful.
We are so grateful for him. When I learned that it's not like I was like spending like one page, half of the page, I will take everything. And when I learned it's almost
4 pages.
4 pages and so detailed, I was crying. I can tell you, that was funny because actually Anita called me like, Karolina, are you in home? I was from the way from the cemetery to the grocery store, and no, I'm taking some shops, so on, and like, go home because we have the foreword. I was in the middle in the shop and I want to scream and I couldn't because people were looking at me like, this girl is crazy. And this is the fastest shopping I ever made to back home and read this. And I remember that the Kasper from CDCPR asking how is our feelings about this, and I couldn't write anything because I almost cried.
Oh.
Because I was so grateful.
Yeah, but it was like that, like when we were reading that, it was like something positively shocking, and I couldn't believe that it's so long, that it's so detailed, and it was like, that he did it in, let's say, for our book. Like this was like, no, it's not happening. No, that's not happening. That something is lying to me. So yes, we are so thankful. We really had tears in our eyes. Like I was just, oh no, that's not happening. Really, like still when I'm thinking about that moment, I'm still not really 100% believing that, because it's something astonishing that the author, the creator, like he took some time, like he made it for us, let's say. So yeah, we're so thankful for Mr. Andrzej Sapkowski. Forever grateful. And of course for CDPR for everything they allowed us to do in this.
They believe in us. Yeah.
And they're really great people. I can assure you that working with them was like the best experience I have in my career. Really.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like you were working. You feel like this is like the journey. Of course, with many unexpected things, but still, it was so much fun, and we are grateful everybody who spent time with us and helped this dream to become true. Finally.
But it was challenging and complex, but we made it with a huge, of course, support. And I would just tell that for Infinity that we are really, really grateful, because without these people,
everybody will be bored that we are thankful to Mr. Sapkowski and CDPR, but we really are.
And for our publishers as well, because Shaida, our editor, made a great work. Also the designers and so on. She was with us like for 2 years, and I was thinking, oh my God, probably this woman have enough of us with all our crazy ideas. But with Shaida, we really had, and we have, of course, I believe that we have a really deep connection, and she really understood what we wanted to achieve.
Yes.
And that was the key, I think, because, understanding each other, if you don't know each other and you're just working on something like totally different culture, totally different language, and you have to work together on it. So understanding each other, I think it's a key, and I think it really worked out really well. And
I think that I can say both for me and Anita. We feel like we are protected by her, because whatever happens and so on, she was really for us. Even we sometimes have calls not about the book, but because we need the chat, we need to discuss something because we are worried about something. And she was like almost like a therapist for us, because for us it was the first big project, and I'm so grateful that she still want to work with us, because for us was like we have like our own mom. Something like that.
So we've met a lot of wonderful people along the way, and we learned so much from them, and I hope they also thinking maybe about that at least in a good way, that they don't have enough of us, because I know that sometimes with our ideas and all the things that we want to break in the process, all the rules that are already, let's say, set for some things that we want to break them. So like summarizing this up, it was a real nice journey, a real nice experience, challenging, complex, but really satisfying.
If you ask us like now, if we do this again, yes, we will do this again.
But maybe not in our worst days, like, oh my God, we're so tired. Would you do it again? Yes.
Well, I'm so excited to see where your journey continues to go. I'm sure that the Witcher Official Cookbook is just one stop for you guys on lovely, lovely career that you guys are building for yourselves in this and for your work.
We will see.
Again, congratulations. It's like, if you guys haven't bought the book yet, please go out, check it out. Request it at your local library. Download it from like Kindle and Audible and everything.
And give us feedback, of course, because we're waiting for any feedback, because we want to learn more. We want to know how your impressions are, and we'll be thankful for all your feedback.
Yes. So that's going to be it for our show today. Anita, Karolina, thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode. Thank you for joining me over the last, 4 or 5 years over my journey.
And thanks for having us for all the patience. For the patience for us.
Every time it's a joy. I am so excited to talk to you both. Always, 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 always. So where can people find you guys? Not just, the cookbook, but you guys are online as well?
Yes, we are online at Nerd's Kitchen PL, but we recently rebranded for Nerd's Kitchen Creations. So you can just go to our website and go either to Nerd's Kitchen when you can find all the recipes. Probably we will then shift them to the Nerd's Kitchen Creations, all the English content, but for now it's on our Polish website, or you can just join our Witcher Kitchen website dedicated only to the Witcher cuisine, and also follow us on all our socials, because we have also some additional, let's say, content that Karolina really likes to do, for example, for all the open air museums and all the folk things that she wanted to share with you. So if you're interested, we really invite you to follow us, and of course reach us if you have any questions, any doubts, any inquiries. We're for you.
And sometimes I even put a spoiler, like Alyssa, do you remember? Like I made a photo that you sent us a Christmas gift on the fragment of the map, and now you have the map in the cookbook.
I do.
And
that was such a fun little treat. I saw it there, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yes, nobody knows, so it was a spoiler
Sneaky,
sneak peek.
sneaky.
Sneaky.
Oh, well, again, thank you both so much. Always a pleasure. And thank you guys, all listeners, for joining us for the special season finale. We'll be back with the premiere of Breakfast in Beauclair Season 6 on Thursday, April 4th, 2024. Bye, guys.
Bye. And listen to Alyssa always for her podcast, because it's great. It's great. It's
the
marvelous.
Best.
Yes. So listen to every
episode.
Everyone.
Yes. Every episode. Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks for joining us